Hey there, welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I'm Sam Oches, editor-in-chief here at NRN, and this is the show where I give you an all-access pass to the restaurant industry's most influential decision-makers. This week, I'm talking with Jeff Fenster, the founder and CEO of Everbowl, an acai bowl concept that's grown to 100 locations in 9 years, which now counts athletes like Jayson Tatum, Brees, and Shaquille O'Neal among its investors. As you'll hear from this interview, much of Everbowl's success can be attributed to Jeff's knack for disruption in the marketplace, his entrepreneurial mindset, and as you'll quickly find out, his intense passion for his business. A perfect example of Jeff's disruptive disposition is how he started an entire construction company just so he could cut down on build-out costs and build Everbowl stores more quickly. Jeff joined the podcast to talk about how he's rethinking the standard way that restaurateurs scale their businesses and why there's no replacement for hard work, determination, and love for what you do for a living. In this interview, you will learn more about why restaurant leaders should be problem solvers, not problem seekers, how streamlining your construction process can help you grow faster, and why the opportunities right in front of you are the catalysts for brand change. Also, reminder that we are gearing up for an incredible Create event for emerging restaurateurs this October 15th through 17th in Nashville. Our agenda is nearly set in stone, and it features leaders from companies like Kava, Din Tai Fung, Fogo de Chaux, Honey Grow, Swig, and Dutch Bros, with many more to announce soon. And we also have a keynote chat and performance with the Bacon Brothers, starring none other than Kevin Bacon himself. Also, if you're an emerging restaurant operator, we have a special session that will allow you to pitch your concept directly to investors. But act now, spots are limited. This event is free for restaurant operators to attend, so register today at create.nrn.com. Jumping now into my interview with Everbowl founder Jeff Fenster. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 6 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I'm sitting down with Jeff Fenster, the CEO and founder of Everbowl. Jeff, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be on here. We got to talk a little music beforehand, so now let's talk some food.
You know what? We might yet talk about music.
Music and food are the two things that transcend all humans across the planet from birth to death and every event in between.
I love that. And I'm always looking for the intersection of food and music. So if it comes up again, just know we're going to follow that path wherever it takes us, because I'm happy to talk about music anytime. And I suspect a lot of the restaurateurs listening to this similarly, because to your point, they are so closely linked. So I'm sure we got a lot of music fans listening in. Jeff, we got to go back to the sort of the origin story of Everbowl. You've built this incredible concept over now about 9 years. So back to 2016 is when you started this thing. What were you doing before Everbowl? What was life before Everbowl?
How far back do you want me to go?
Babies, when you were a baby.
Grew up in San Diego, went to University of Arizona for undergrad, graduated a year early, and actually enlisted in the Marine Corps and applied to law school at the same time. I wanted to be a sports agent. And I played football in high school with Kellen Winslow, who's now in prison. We won't get into that. So I had a lot of relationships in the professional, in the sports world. I always wanted to be a professional athlete. I wasn't good enough or big enough or either. So I had to, and I believed that being a sports agent would allow me to stay connected. So graduated a year early, didn't really know what I was going to do, applied to law school late, didn't think I was going to get in. So I enlisted in the Marine Corps and told the Marines, if I get into law school, I'm going to law school. I had an enlistment date. I got into 2 law schools out of the 40 I applied to and started my law school career in Miami at 21, transferred to San Diego and finished at 24, had a daughter while I was in law school. So when I graduated and became a sports agent, I found out that prior to the world of internet and Zoom, before we had smartphones, before we had all this amazing tech, you had to go face to face for all these meetings. And it was November. I graduated in May, was working till about November. And it was my daughter's birthday in September. And I missed her birthday because I had to be at a meeting for one of my clients physically for a 1 hour meeting, but I had to travel across the country. And you know how that goes. And so when I came back, and my wife's birthday was in October, and we were planning something, and I kept saying, well, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And she just said, this is going to be your life. And I had that epiphany, which was like, oh shit, it's going to be my life. And so I decided to pivot, and I got out of being a sports agent and put the law degree on the shelf and continued to pay law school loans, and got a sales job working for a company called ADP. just to make some money and pay for my daughter and my fiance. We were getting married, and it was very successful. 6 months, was the number one sales rep in the country, made a bunch of money, bought a house. Everything was great. And in March, I went to my boss and basically said, hey, I need the bonus that I was supposed to get. And they said, you get to wait till the end of the fiscal year. And I was unsure what they really meant by that. And they said, look, these are annual goals. And when we give you an annual goal, you get it, but you don't get it till the fiscal year when the new contract year starts. And so I had to wait 6 months. And I'm like, I'm not waiting 6 months. I did the job. Pay me. And it was a problem. So I threatened to quit at 20. I was 20, almost 25. And I threatened to quit if they wouldn't give it to me. And they called my bluff. And I was like, you're not going to let the number one sales rep walk out the door. And they were going to. And it's a it's an international behemoth company. So I went home and I told my fiance, Brittany, I'm like, hey, this is a situation. I want to quit my job, sell the house, and move in with my mom and dad and start my own payroll company because FADP. And I kind of said it half-assed because I never thought of entrepreneurship. I never heard that word before. I had a doctor father and a teacher mother. Like, it was get a job, work till you're 55, 60, retire, and do the whole thing. I never thought about a business owner like ever. And we didn't say entrepreneurs growing up. It was business owner. And that is usually someone who had a family business or worked in a field and then eventually started their own. The idea of starting it young or as a career was just never entered in my mind. But I got pissed at ADP because here I was selling all this stuff. And my fiance was like, yeah, let's do it. So I walked in and I said, literally, Ashley, to my manager, Ashley, I'm going to quit if you guys don't do it. She's like, we can't, Jeff. My hands are tied. You shouldn't quit. And I'm like, I quit. So I quit. They had to give me my bonus then. Sold the house, moved in with my mom and dad, and started my first company at 24, almost 25, a payroll company in March. My birthday was in April. And that was my foray in entrepreneurship. Grew that, ended up selling that in 2011. Had a recruiting agency that I sold as well in 2011. I started in 2009. Partnered with a guy named Neil Patel and built a digital marketing agency from end of 2011, beginning of 12, and sold it in 2015. Wrapped up all my earnout shit at the beginning of 2016. Had a second daughter in 2011. And so I'm a girl dad. Today, 19 nice. And 13. My oldest goes to Ole Miss and will be interning this summer with at VaynerMedia with Gary. And then my youngest is a horseback rider. So I love getting to be a dad. And I tried the retirement thing in 2015 and I drove my family crazy. And my wife said, seriously, Jeff, like, you can't sit here all day. And it was because, look, you had no purpose, right? Like, here, I had always been building, I'd always been working towards something. I'd always had a future thing that I was striving to do. And here I am, and I no longer did for a minute. And all my friends are working, and I had the means, but not the companionship and the friends. And my wife had motherly duties. She takes care of the kids, and my kids are younger then, carpools and lunches and breakfast and house stuff. And she's like, Jeff, I'm not just messing around all day. Like, I can't. And so, she's like, why don't you go do something you're passionate about? Like, just go have fun, but do something. So I was a superfood guy. I believe prevention is better than curing illness, and what you eat is a great way to do that. And so since 2007, I've been importing acai into my house and making it just at my home because there was not really a place to get acai. Back then, Jamba Juices of the world didn't have it, and Smoothie Kings and Robex and all those guys. No one had this kind of product. Tropical Smoothie Cafe just introduced it like 6 months ago. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I'll put an Everbowl in the front. I'll have an office in the back to do some consulting because I've been helping, some business owners try to scale and grow and exit. And I was like, okay, I'll have this to pay for my office. It'll be a passion project. And I then tried to get a lease in February of 2016, and I was rejected because I didn't have a name. I didn't have a menu. And I showed up like a guy who had no idea what he was doing in a restaurant because I don't know how to cook.
How hard could it be?
Yeah. And then July of 2016, I was in Poway, California, visiting a former digital marketing client and just going there to kind of help them do some small little things. And I stopped in a Smoothie King to get a smoothie. And the owner was taking everything off the shelf and putting it in his van. And I'm like, are you closed, sir? And it was a Wednesday. And he said, Friday's our last day. I'm retiring. And that was actually the last Smoothie King in San Diego. And I didn't know that. I'm like, why are you retiring? Like, what happened to the business? And he's like, I've been here 20 years. I tried to sell it, but I probably was asking too much. And I'm retiring. I'm done. So I got the landlord's number. I called her, and it was a private individual woman landlord. And I said, I'll take it. And my thought was, if a smoothie place could last 20 years, then worst case, if no one wants acai bowls, I'll sell smoothies and it'll work. So I signed the lease. The name on the lease was Jeff Likes Bowls because I didn't have a company yet. And it's like, okay, here we go. And then I reached out to a friend of mine who does beautiful graphic design and branding. And I said, would you mind helping me come up with a name? And he said, sure. And so he had never had an acai bowl. So I made him one in my house. He's like, oh, this is really good. And he's like, okay, I came up with a name. I don't love it necessarily, or I might love it, but I want to come up with 3 or 4 more and give you like 4 or 5 to choose from. I'm like, well, what's the first one? He's like, I don't want to give you the first one. Let me give you all of them. I'm like, no. I was like, eager beaver. I'm like, what is it? And he said, Everbowl. I'm like, that's it. And he's like,
Wow.
no, there could be other names. I'm like, no, that's the perfect name. I don't need to hear another one. That is it. Because ever is like forever, whatever, everybody. I mean, I like the word ever. That was it. So in a matter of a day, he came up with the name, and then he worked to do the logo. And then he asked me to explain to him what I wanted to do culturally here. And I gave him my SOPs on life and my business principles and what our culture was going to be about making friends and having fun and the problem that I believed we were going to solve in the marketplace. And he helped craft kind of all that in a way that allowed me to present it and have a design and a look. And then built a store. And 2 weeks before the store opened, I had him and about 20 of my other friends come into my house, and I made them all a couple versions of every product. And on sticky notes, they told me which ones they liked. And that was our menu. And we opened our doors. And I had no idea what I was doing. And when I told my mom and dad at dinner that I had signed this lease in July, because my wife didn't really think I was going to do it, I don't think. It's funny because my mom said, you don't know how to cook. And my dad said, are you nuts? 9 out of 10 restaurants fail. And my wife jokingly said, all you do in the kitchen is eat and make a mess. And all those things are true. But that's why restaurants fail, because unfortunately they're started by chefs. And there's a big distinction there that we can get into. But my success in business is not because I'm special. I'm an ordinary guy. I don't have any special, unique talents outside of maybe, I don't have that fear of putting myself out there. So maybe that holds someone back. So if I had one strength that maybe I could lean on, it's that. But otherwise, everything has been learned. Everything has been derived. And I'm a big believer in follow success because it leaves clues and formulas. And I'm a formula guy. So that was my foray into Everbowl. And then Everbowl started in 2016 and we were figuring it out.
It's amazing. I mean, it's funny that entrepreneurship was not a word that you knew or talked about growing up, because you are the classic example of a serial entrepreneur. I mean, you are the definition of it. But entrepreneurs, I mean, entrepreneurs see a problem and they figure out how to fix it. And so for somebody like you, being a chef isn't a problem. You are just going to figure out how to overcome that. Clearly you have. But also for entrepreneurs, I mean, I think, the vision for an entrepreneur tends to be not, I'm going to open one and just have one forever and enjoy life in my one shop. I'm sure from the jump, you're thinking, how do I scale this? And you had businesses before that you had scaled. So was that immediately on your mind? Like first get it to be successful, then scale this thing?
No, I do believe scale is the key to everything. But again, this was just going to be a hobby. Like I was not looking to build a restaurant brand. Honestly, I was looking to not have to pay for an office. I was planning on saying, okay, look, I'll sell some bowls. I'll have fun. I'll be able to import and stop importing it to my house, have food in my office, and I'll keep my office in the back and we'll just do some stuff. Like it was really not meant to be what it ended up becoming when I signed the lease and when I prepared to open the doors. And then day one didn't change anything, but day two did. And then it was day 2 through day 30. I realized I'm sitting on a really big opportunity. I'm going to go run into this thing. So I signed lease number 2, 31 days after lease 1. I opened my doors. And I signed 3 and 4 2 months later. So I had 4 leases or 4 stores within 3 months. One opened the second one 5.5 months after the first one opened, and opened 3 and 4 5 months after that. So my first 12 months, I had 4 of them. It's a philosophical thing. Like I agree, entrepreneurs as a statement, find problems and solve them. I think the challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs is they're looking for a problem to solve. And that's a different type of thing. The problem is not, I don't know how to cook. That's not the problem. I believe entrepreneur, the definition is you are a problem solver. It doesn't mean you should be a problem seeker. And when people try to find a problem and solve it, the challenge there is, why are you better at solving it than anyone else? And how are you going to solve it? And then what are you going to do with it once you solve it? It's like the dog chasing the car. What happens when you catch it, right? So I don't look for problems. I look for opportunities and I look for soft spots. And the truth about entrepreneurship, forget everything else. There's 2 things. The entrepreneur themselves. So you've probably heard the saying, like when I invest in companies, I always bet the jockey, not the horse. I don't care what the business idea is. You can give a great operator a bad idea and they'll be successful. And you can give a bad entrepreneur operator a great idea and they will fail. And I've seen it so many times, and it's how they approach it. So to me, it's all about that, number one. And then number 2, it's timing. I couldn't do Everbowl the way I did it today. I couldn't do my digital marketing agency the way I did it in 2011 today. I couldn't do my payroll business in 2007 the way I did it today, because the timing was fortunate. My luck was I matched an opportunity with a problem with timing. And that third one is left out so often. People don't put enough weight on timing. And what I mean by is this. Take Everbowl. When I started in San Diego, there might have been 2 or 3 places that sold an acai bowl, but I couldn't tell you what they were.
Yeah.
Today, there's probably 300 places that sell an acai bowl with 4 or 5 national brands, with Everbowl being one of them. So you or me starting Jeff's Bowls today, where and what am I going to differentiate and how? And everyone's going to compare me to somebody who's already there unless I innovate something brand spanking new, which is not easy to do, or I have a better tasting product, a better price, or a better offering with the vibe. Doesn't mean you can't do it. I'm just saying my timing was so good because I had no barriers in front of me. I was dictating to 7 out of 10 people. They never even knew how to say acai. So I got to be their first experience. I got to create that connection to this product segment. That's timing. So yes, but if I tried to do it today, it wouldn't work. Same thing, again, digital marketing in 2011. That was the transition where the internet was old enough that it was ingrained in business, but not saturated enough, where people still weren't receiving mail by order catalogs and faxes. And a lot of the generation that was still in business, we'll call it the people who were 50 and up in 2011, were not accustomed to the internet. So they were running companies without a background in internet and digital marketing and the experience. And I didn't know anything about the internet. I barely know how to use a computer. But Neil Patel is world class at this. And I had the relationship capital. So I was able to take his expertise and my relationships and walk into doors and say, hey, Jeff, how much money are you generating online at Sears? And they would say, oh, most of our business is through our catalog, and they're dead now. So they didn't transition. So we were able to find a soft spot because the people in power didn't have the domain expertise and didn't understand the importance and the behavior of people on the internet. And so bringing in an expert like Neil with my relationships with them, it was shooting fish in a barrel. It was easy money. Today, trying to be a digital marketing agency today with agentic AI and AI tools and every third person is a marketer. Okay. If you don't have the relationships, good luck. Timing. So I think that that's very important to not be lost on people who are looking and exploring. Also, please put weight and evaluate the timing of your decisions because timing matters more than almost anything else.
So to that end, Everbowl opens before, to your point, you had this real rush into that acai bowl category. Of course, you had juice brands that existed already that jumped into acai bowls. So your timing was right on. You were really ahead of that. But here we are 9 years on. And I'm just wondering, though in those early days, you're somebody who wanted to be an athlete. You strike me as somebody, you care a lot about health and wellness and lifestyle. So acai bowls fitting nicely into that. When you started this brand, did you have this vision that it could be a leader in healthy eating and help people eat better? And how has that mission really evolved over the last 9 years as this category has really become very competitive?
So I heard this. I heard Elon Musk say this about electric cars, and not getting into the political side of Elon Musk today, but he mentioned this, I don't know, 8-9 years ago. And someone asked him, is he scared because other brands were starting to create electric cars? And he said, I'm not competing with them on electric cars. I'm competing with gas-powered cars. I hope everybody creates an electric car. And that's kind of the modus that I took to this business because it was a passion project first. The money's great, but I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for passion. So what am I after? I'm attacking the fast and the fried. The average American eats fast food 3.2 times a week. We are the most obese country in the world. We are killing ourselves. We are terrible on all health metrics. We are poisoning our youth. We are poisoning our adults. And there's a reason for it. Everybody wants to eat healthy, but they don't for one of 4 reasons. And I summed up those 4 reasons into my 4 excuses that people make. And those are the 4 things I'm here to solve every day. And that's healthy eating is either too expensive because it's not subsidized by the government the same way other stuff is. You can't get it. It's not accessible. You're in a 30-minute lunch break and this is what's available. Affordable filling. It doesn't leave you full. So you think of it as like a little fufu salad instead of the double quarter pounder with cheese and the fries, right? And then delicious. Can you make it taste good? Because people think healthy food and they immediately goes, is it good? When I say cheeseburger, you don't ask that question. Most Americans go, oh, cheeseburger, I'll take one. They don't ask, is it a good cheeseburger? It's like, is this a PG show?
We can make it PG-13 or R. Go for it.
Okay. Well, it's just a joke that used to be, they say sex is like pizza. When it's good, it's really good. And when it's bad, it's still pretty good. That's not true of healthy food in people's minds, right? So I had to make Everbowl affordable, filling, delicious, and accessible. Affordable for everybody to eat it. filling. So when they left it, they felt like they were full and satisfied and didn't have to go now buy lunch or dinner. Delicious, because if it's not good, you're just not going to do it. And then accessible. I had to put them everywhere because without them being there, you're not going to drive 20 miles for an Everbowl. I wish you would, you should, but you're not going to. So I need to put it in front of you where you work, where you live, or where you commute. So you have no excuse but to go there. And so by doing those 4 things, I believe we can convert everybody to eat better. And Everbowl's not a healthy restaurant. We're a better for you restaurant. We will meet our customers where they are. So we will have things that aren't ideally healthy, but they are better than the alternative. And then we have products that are extremely healthy for those who are further along the journey, because I don't think people should make a major change. You should never do like, oh, I'm paleo today. I'm giving up all carbs for the rest of my life. But yesterday you were eating pizzas and breads. That's not sustainable, right? It's Kaizen. It's getting 1% better. So what if you start to replace one piece of food that you would normally eat that's bad for you with one thing that's good for you this day or this week? And then next week, try to add another one. And over the course of time, you're going to move away from the bad stuff and introduce good stuff. That's how you get, sustainable and permanent change. So Everbowl needs to meet you where you are. So I don't have to wait for you to be this far on the journey for you to become a customer, which I think a lot of health food restaurants do. And it's a mistake. They're too dogmatic in their ideals and say, well, because we are vegan, we can't have anything not vegan. Okay, but I'm not vegan. But it doesn't mean I don't want to have a vegan Tuesday. And I'm not coming to your restaurant very often because I don't have anything there I want to eat when I do want it. So why not be a vegan-centric restaurant, but still offer things that people may eat that you could then introduce them, like Dave's Hot Chicken. Dave's Not Chicken is, our president Trevor is vegan. He swears by it. He's like the best chicken sandwich ever. Mm-hmm. But he used to not be vegan. So he knew how good Dave's was. And then he's like, oh, I can have a not vegan. You know what? Let me try that this time. It's the same. It's just as good. And now I can become vegan if that's the mission. I don't think it's my mission, but for some it is. So I think that area is lost. And so I think the same thing for the fast and the fried. McDonald's was smart to put a salad on there. Their mistake was it wasn't delicious and it wasn't marketed right. But if McDonald's was to start to create a healthier version or a better for you version of their product and actually lean into it, they could draw some of the healthy crowd back. The problem is they're not going to go the other way. You don't usually go from, I'm already living a healthy lifestyle, so let me divert to a bad one without a unfortunate bad life experience. So there, it's just a matter of the veto. And that's the other challenge that hurts brands in restaurants so often is me and you are going to lunch. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? You want to go to Everbowl? Nah, I'm thinking of a hamburger. I was really thinking of like a salad or a smoothie or a bowl. Where can we go? Right now our limits. And McDonald's was smart to put the salad there. They just didn't think about delicious and put enough effort into it. I don't have cheeseburgers, so we would still be the veto. And that's why you see restaurants tend to go together in shopping centers and food courts, because you get your cheeseburger at McDonald's, I get my Everbowl, we sit out front, we eat together, or we go in one of the restaurants. So from a what is Everbowl solving? What was that thing that we looked at? To your point, it was affordable, filling, delicious, and accessible as often as possible. Meet our customers where they are. Everbowl's for everybody at every stage of your journey. And we're going to be a better for you solution over time.
Yeah. Well, and so to that end, this idea of, really getting this in front of everybody to show them the value of Everbowl, the deliciousness of it. So again, it comes back to that idea of scale. You have to continue to grow, to get it to become more accessible to consumers across the country. And now in doing so, obviously any company that is scaling, there are so many different challenges that arise. And we'll walk through a couple of them, but you have a few differentiating factors here that I think is really helping you guys to unlock some of the growth potential of Everbowl. And I know construction is one of them. I want to kind of start there. Tell me about this unique construction situation that you have that is helping to scale Everbowl.
I'll start by saying I don't know how to build stuff. You send my kids a present, my wife puts it together. I don't use household tools. I'm not manly like that, unfortunately.
Not handy. Me neither.
Well, it drives me crazy. I don't have the patience for it, and I end up skipping screws, breaking things. It's just not for me. But the first Everbowl cost too much money. And my goal, once I realized I wanted to build a lot of them, was accessible, right? I need to make more of these so they're accessible to people. If it's $300,000+ to open up a smoothie shop, Everbowl, an acai bowl store, how is that scalable if I'm going to go self-fund these and I want to go build 100? Because I was never going to franchise. Well, that's going to cost me a lot of money. And why is it so expensive? And why has nobody solved this problem? And then I got to understand by asking friends who are in this construction world, well, GCs don't scale with you and there's trades and everybody marks everything up, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, well, I'm building the same thing over and over and over again. the Model T was done on a supply line, in a manufacturing facility. And the Industrial Revolution showed us what repeatable tasks done in automation can do for cost and speed and quality. And so I said, okay, why don't I start my own construction company just to build Everbowls? And I like the name WeBuild because I used to have a company called WeCreate, and this was before WeWorks. And WeBuild was just meant to build Everbowls. And so I invested a few $1 million into building out a manufacturing facility in San Diego just to build Everbowls. And my goal was I was trying to forecast, I made an assumption that I could take my price from 350 to just over 300 to 150. So I was like, okay, if 150 grand, how many Everbowls do I have to open for this to pencil? And it's about 22, 23 Everbowls. So I was like, okay, well, I'm in. So let's go do that. So it didn't go down as fast as I was hoping because I didn't know what I was doing. And the guy who I hired to run it, Jake, built my first one, but he had never thought about it from an automation side, right? So, and how to think about the problem differently, meaning don't buy wood for the next store, figure out where the price breaks are and how many stores that will equal. And then we're going to build them anyway. So let's find a place to store it. And then what does that do to our cost? If I'm paying for it and I have the cash, because it becomes a cash flow concern. If you don't, I don't care. I'm building it anyway. So where are those breaks and how many stores and what is the sweet spot? And let's decompartmentalize the box to a bunch of Legos or screws. How many of these screws does it take? Okay. And when we build or buy the screws, if I buy 20, it's my best price point and we need 10 per store. So that's 2 stores. Great. We got screws done. And let's do that this way and we'll micromanage over time. And then let's use first principle thinking and say, well, this is how we did it, but that doesn't mean that's how we have to do it tomorrow. So what would you change if you had to go back and do it again? What was the time suck? What was the weak point? Where was the part that you're like, man, this was really expensive for what we got? And we started to realize we're not interior designers, but why do you not put quality where people touch and put pretty, but not as quality on things that can't be touched? So things that are high in the ceiling, like chandeliers, make them fake, but make it look pretty because no one touches it. Casework at the counter line, make that durable. It's kicked, touched, hopped on, scratched all the time. So that has to be where you put your quality, right? And start to think about what it like the walls, my wood on my walls. When I started, it was $11 a linear foot. And then we found a much cheaper material at $1 at the time, $1.30 a linear foot. There's a lot of there's 4,000 or 5,000 square feet in some of my stores of wood based on all the walls and the bender and all that we use. That's material money. And that's straight to my pocket. And now all of a sudden 300 became 280, became 260, became 250, became 210, became 150, and my cheapest Everbowl I built before COVID was $78,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you know what the cash on cash return of a restaurant for $78,000 is? Fast.
Yeah.
Right? So now I can build 2 or 3 Everbowls for the price of one, which gives me scale, which gives me protection, which gave me speed, which allowed me to control it. When COVID happened and contractors were inaccessible, my team builds my stuff. I'm not waiting on you. I dictate where we go. It's my stuff. Now, it wasn't to make money. See, a lot of business owners think about it as, well, I'm not in that business. How am I going to make money? Well, it was to save money. It was to be a derivative of accessibility, solving my problem of accessibility. Building them cheaper lets me build them faster. Building them faster creates momentum, which gets me marketing and gets me media attention, which brings customers in the door, which makes me more money so I can build more stores. More stores allows me to bring my food costs down to make the food more affordable. I need scale to do that problem, right? So affordable and accessible come from that. Filling and delicious, that's the next phase. But the cheaper the food, the more food I can give you for the same price. So that also helps filling. And then delicious, you need to throw enough people through the pipes to see what tastes good, right? So you also don't know what you have because location matters very much in restaurants. But you don't really know what you don't know. I mean, we just opened our 100th store. Our last 10 stores, 8 of them are 8 of our top 10 stores in the country because we figured out real estate 100 stores later. And one of them, I would have told you privately, I thought was going to fail. I was so nervous for the store and I did not want it to open. I thought it was the biggest mistake and it's legitimately a top 3 store in the country.
Interesting.
So that was to show you that you don't necessarily understand real estate even at 100. And if you're smarter than me, maybe you do, but I don't. You think you do and you understand the variables and you kind of know what's bad. But there are things that you don't understand if you don't live in the community, which is ingress, egress. Is there a light 3 blocks away that is such a pain in the ass that when I say, let's go to Everbowl and you're late and you only have 10 minutes, you go, dude, we're going to get stuck at that light and I'm not going to make the dentist appointment. We can't go today. I don't know that from looking at a map. I don't know that when I'm looking at some, top down, give me cars per day volume and who are my co-tenants. I don't know the experience of the locals that live and work in the community. I don't understand it. I don't know what happens 5 blocks away if you don't get out of there by 2:00. Does it get backed up? Because, in San Diego, we're right by Pendleton. Coming from LA to San Diego, people think, 3:00 will be great. Well, Pendleton lets out at 3. Good luck. That's the worst time. But you don't know that. You don't have that domain expertise. So as you're growing and scaling, real estate is important. And that's why one store doesn't teach you enough. And one store also lets you put all your focus and effort on one. Everyone's the best parent of one kid. Have a second one, right? They got the same challenges with the same amount of resources. And when you're scaling, it's always the entrepreneur's dilemma. More needs than resources. And when you finally have more resources than needs, you're already a massive company you probably sold. So where do you prioritize? And so for me as a entrepreneur, I'm very good at problem solving and starting companies and scaling them.
Yeah.
So that was a solution for me to solve a major problem of how do I bring the cost down? Same thing with the importation, unevolved products. I went to Brazil and I started to import my own acai, my own pitaya, because I needed a brand differentiator. I think one of the secret sauces of Everbowl in our space is we have our own acai. Most of our competitors, the brands you can name, they all share the same acai from the same 3 or 4 importers. So you're buying the same product. It's just what name is on the door. It's like when you go to a fine dining restaurant and you order ice cream. They don't tell you it's Baskin-Robbins or Haagen-Dazs. It's whatever generic name it is. And you don't care. You're there for that restaurant, right? But Baskin-Robbins built a brand. Haagen-Dazs built a brand. You want Everbowl products? You got to go to an Everbowl. And that is, the Wendy's Square Burger. You like it or you don't, but that's who we are. And so we can define that.
Well, it's fascinating. I mean, let's start with just the idea of kind of owning your own supply, owning your own construction. I mean, there's a reason not everybody's doing it because there's cost, issues and there's complexity. And I mean, it seems like you've just decided to put in the work up front to solve for those so that this is a long-term bet that you're making here, that over time you will reduce the costs and you'll solve for the complexity.
That was the hypothesis.
Yeah, because
you my own distribution company and it failed miserably, and I got out of that game.
Okay, so get into that because that's where I'm like, well, why isn't everybody doing this? Sounds so simple when you say it, but you have had these failures where you can't just do it all yourself.
I mean, I had a coffee business, acai infused coffee.
Interesting.
You're going to drink coffee every day anyway. You're not always going to eat an acai bowl. Why not have acai with your coffee? You know how hard it is to get coffee in shopping centers where there's not a exclusive for a Starbucks or a Pete's or a pick your coffee house. That's a problem. And then teaching the consumer to come to you for coffee and changing their behavior in the morning ritual, challenge that was very hard. Didn't work. Distribution. I was like, we import all of our own foods. I only had at the time 12 stores in San Diego. So I got a big warehouse. I built a huge walk-in freezer. It's 40 feet long. I built a huge walk-in fridge. I had LA produce market. We would go pick up produce every day and we would deliver to our stores all of the bases, all of the acai, pitaya, etc. Granola, which we made, and then the fresh fruit, the plastics I imported, and I had a repository for all of our stuff, and we self-distributed. Terrible business for me. You need so much scale to make that profitable. It is unbelievably expensive. It is unbelievably hard. And I'm like, this is stupid. As bad as the Cisco's and US Foods are known to be because they're franchisees and don't tend to care enough about the individual restaurateur, which is their mistake. And that's their secret sauce. If one of them starts to provide love to their customers and actually show care, they'll destroy everybody else and they'll get the entire sector. So any of them are listening, I have an MSA with Cisco. Please give us more love and attention and stop screwing my stores. That aside, the problems of them is worth, I'd rather have those problems than self-distribution. So a lot of money wasted. I had 4 freezer trucks. I had a lease for a big warehouse. I had a commercial kitchen in the warehouse. I had major walk-in freezers and fridges that nobody wants to buy secondhand because they're paneled. And it's gone. All right. Coffee business, failure. But that's okay. Because again, you got to lean into your brilliance. Like I said, if I was a chef, I wouldn't do any of these things. I'd be making food. I'm not a chef. My creation is I'm good at starting companies. I'm good at scaling companies. I'm good at pivoting and finding sweet spots and with my relationship capital, solving the problem differently. I don't physically solve problem. I have resources that will solve problem.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, kind of is like a fail fast mentality, right? Like you're willing to take the big swing, but you're willing to fail. And if you're going to fail fast, get out of that, move on to the next thing. And
Yeah.
you just kind of continue on that way.
I don't understand who wants to fail slowly. I don't know why no one has ever been able to articulate a good response to how that is at all better. I don't understand it. You want the false sense of hope for another couple of weeks, days, months, and waste more time, which is your most valuable resource? Why? If it's not going to work, let me know and let's move on. Let's find the thing that works. Because success is not, it's elusive because we don't try enough things to get it. We get this terrible thing that, unfortunately, I'm surrounded by in my world, and so are you, and so is everybody, of this notion of people are so strong in their opinions. They don't realize that every day, everything is different. Every day. There could be a radioactive issue at a nuclear plant, and yesterday you had the cleanest air in the city, and today you have the least clean air in the city. There could be a earthquake that disrupts San Diego's freeway systems, and you like San Diego because of this. Or Hawaii could have, a hurricane, and those are all bad things or good things, right? All of a sudden they strike oil in South Dakota, and their real estate that you bought is now 10x. Nobody can predict that stuff. So why people don't understand the idea of first principle thinking and approach of starting over. What you know from yesterday is the basis to come at the problem or situation. But I get infuriated when people don't learn and take new information to make a new decision. Nobody should have beliefs that are unmovable. And they have them. We see it in politics, unfortunately, but that's not my arena. But in business, as an entrepreneur, as an employee, as an individual who is taking ownership of their craft. The reason I can come into these industries with no experience is because I have no experience. So I come in with first world thinking and go into an antiquated industry that does things the way they've always done it because no one is innovating, because everyone is stuck in their ways and nobody wants to put forth the effort to take the risk to see what else can be done and challenge the status quo. But every day is a new damn day. So why aren't we? And the world needs us to, because as soon as I do it, I give you permission to do it. And when you do it, you give me permission to do it. And I watch you do something cool. I'm like, that's fucking brilliant. Let me do that. And I take what you did and I put a little me in it. Then you see what I do and you take it and you put a little you in it. And the game keeps growing and we all improve, right? The standard today is so much higher than the standard was 20 years ago on how we manufacture certain things. Not that the product is better, because it's not, but the attention to how we do it is based on all the learnings. Like people cut off their fingers doing this. So they made table saws that touch your skin and instantly stops. Fascinating, right? That's pretty cool. Doesn't last as long as the traditional one. And that's why, my mom's washer and dryer from the 80s still works and I have to replace one every 4 years, but that's separate. So I think that not everyone's doing it because that's not their brilliance, right? A lot of people are niche specific or industry specific experts. And that's where they go to entrepreneurship, which is great. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have any of that special industry brilliance in anything. By the time I learn it, I'm usually moving on to something else.
Well, and to that idea of just sort of this constant change, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I mean, the marketplace you exist within is completely different than 2016. And when we think about what has changed about the restaurant industry, I mean, obviously the period of just 2020 to now, the digital revolution that has happened, of course, the push toward off-premises service. Everybody wants a drive-through. Everybody's doing delivery. You're getting into drone delivery. I mean, everything has changed, and how the consumer engages with their favorite brands has changed because, now they're seeing things on social media. They're tapping one button. It's getting delivered to their door. And then on top of that, as an operator, you also have just reams and reams and reams of data available at your fingertips. So when we think about like your site selection, you're talking about, getting that right and having strategy around site selection. Well, you've got more data now in 2025 than you ever had before, certainly in 2016, to make that very specific decision. And then you have brands out there like, call it, Dutch Bros and Seven Brew, that are showing you how, oh, hey, we're going to drop a drive-through only thing on this side of the road and capture that, guest who wants an indulgent treat at 3 p.m. And we're going to grow like bonanza on that model, right? So that's all different than 2016. That all of that, the marketplace. So I'm where I'm going with that is I'm just wondering how that's made you. How have you changed the Everbowl model considering the 9 years of evolution that the marketplace has undergone?
Dramatically, and I'll tell you that, but I want to add one point to that. There's never been more data and information than there is today. It doesn't make it easier. It actually makes it harder.
Noise.
When I was a kid, my source of truth was Encyclopedia Britannica, my teacher and my parents and my friends' parents. So had they told me anything in the encyclopedia, and I looked in the Encyclopedia Britannica to verify, and it agreed with them. That's the truth. The world was enormous. Wherever you lived, someone who lived on the other side of the country, you were sending snail mail or a phone call. Like, you didn't understand. We didn't travel. We didn't have a global society like we do today, where I interact with people in India and not even realize they're in India because they could also be in Indiana, right? You don't know. That transition to today, there's endless information. Everybody in their pocket has the answer to any question you have, whether it's with AI, Google, domain experts, blogs, podcasts, whatever you need to figure out, you can find in your pocket. So you don't need to do that. And the world is small now. We interact with every country from people all over the world. Everyone is traveling. So the difference was before is I was looking at a piece of concrete and I was looking for a blade of grass. Today, I'm on a field of grass and I'm looking for a very specific blade of grass. So if I don't know how to look or I don't know the right question to ask, I can't solve the problem. Where before, I couldn't find the damn grass because there is none. But when I found it, it was clear as day. So it's just, the landscape has changed and how you have to navigate it has changed. So I was never franchising, ever, period. Never was going to do it. And in 2018, when I took a little bit of money from Saruya Private Equity, the big franchise group out of Toronto, Aaron Saruya said to me, he's like, Jeff, you have the perfect franchise model and I'm going to invest because one day you're going to be smart enough to realize this is a franchise and I want to already be on your cap table. And he bet on the fact that I was going to become smarter, which is funny because I didn't call him when I did and said, you're right. But I still was never going to do it. I had 28 stores, March 18th, 2020. I laid everybody off and shut my stores down because of COVID, right? And at the time, we didn't know what COVID was. So it was very early and I was in San Diego and the media said, everyone go home and everyone's going to die. And it was a doom and gloom situation. It was the worst day ever. But from that moment to today, I've had exponential growth. I had exponential growth from that day to that moment, right? 16 to 20, about 4 years, 20 to 24. We're in 25 now, 4.5, 5 years. I hate to say this because there was real impact, but COVID was one of the best things that happened to my business because it forced me to rethink what I was doing because I laid everyone off March 18th. But after the pity party, what do you do? And too many people sat as victims waiting for the world to tell them what to do. And that's why entrepreneurship is hard because you don't get that privilege. You don't get to decide when you work. You don't get to decide, like, that whole 4-hour work week thing is the worst thing in the world for entrepreneurs to read. It's just damn ludicrous. If you guys want to do that, then you're going to let an ordinary guy like me beat you every damn time. If everybody worked hard, I would be average. And I'm grateful that they don't, and they didn't when I was coming up. But now I want to live in a world where everybody's remarkable. So please, everybody, start moving your ass and let's go, because it's mind-boggling that they think I want to be an entrepreneur so I can set my own hours. You don't get to set your own hours. It means you don't get to have a day off. It's birthing a child. And if you don't look at it that way and realize what that means, you've already lost. Like, you're so far behind, you thought you were ahead. And that's dangerous, right? Because you're competing with guys and girls that understand the difference between activity and productivity and what focus of thought and matching that with hard work does. It's not hard to win when everyone else is not playing very hard. They think they are. And that's scary. So going to the pivot, March 19th, I called in 3 of my executives that I'd laid off the day before. And 2 of them showed up. One told me I got fired. I'm not getting paid. I'm not coming in. And that was fine. And we put on, I used to always have these yellow, for those who are watching, like, law school days. But at the very top, I always have every single one for years, I'd write what's next. Every time I grabbed a new one, I'd always write what's next. And as a result of what's next, we said what's next. And we had 28 ghost kitchens, not realizing that word meant anything. And we had 45,000 pounds of this fruit and this fruit and this fruit from our freezers. And from, we're still producing all of our own product at Unevolved Products. We just weren't distributing anymore. And we had consumers at 28 restaurants. So one of my executives said, what if we put 10 acai bowls in a box with granola and deliver it to their house in like a couple mile centric circles around our stores and feed our consumers who are at home? We're like, great, let's do it. So we went on to Shopify, created a product called Later Bowls, and used our loyalty system with all the phone numbers and emails, and reached out and said, hey, we know you're at home. We have all the food. We still want to help you stay healthy. Order by Tuesday at 12 and it'll come Wednesday. Order by Thursday at 12, it'll come Friday. And we'll do 2 deliveries a week. And whatever we did. And me and the other 2 guys, one of us would pack, the other one would drive, and we traded off twice a week. So me, my CFO and my COO and myself and my wife helped as well. The four of us, we did that for about 3.5 weeks, and we sold a ton of product. And light bulb went off, right? I'm a scale guy. What's next? I need to go on QVC with this thing. Everyone's at home. So I reached out to a friend with relationships, and he knew the buyer, and I reached out to the buyer and I sent them some product, and I got on a Zoom, and they said, Jeff, we'd love to have you on. We got on to our first QVC airing, sold 70,000 units in 7 minutes. 17 airings later, 8 figures in revenue. The big deal in 2021, 21 plant-based product of the year for QVC. And we made tens of millions of dollars direct to consumer. But something else fun happened. Franchise requests started to come in from around the country where there wasn't any physical Everbowls. Do you franchise? Do you franchise? I'm interested in franchising. I don't see franchising on your website. Well, Saruya couldn't convince me. But when 300, 400, 500 people around the country ask to buy your business, you eventually get smart. So we franchised. And the way we wanted to do it was remarkable. So the very first employee I ever hired, a guy named Ben Burkhalter, I said, I'm going to finance you and you're going to be our first franchisee. And so he was our first franchisee. And today he's part of a group that owns a couple open, and they have 18 more coming. And we launched franchising. Our largest franchisee is Brees. He has 160 locations. Jayson Tatum, if you're a basketball fan in Boston, he's got 5. Kamaru Usman, a UFC fighter who actually just won a couple weeks ago in Atlanta, was awesome. He just opened his first store in Arizona. And then we have, on investors, other athletes like Shaq and Tariq Al Musa and the founders of GoFundMe and Sean Merriman and Lance Moore and, a lot of athletes, a lot of celebrities are involved because that was my past life. And they understand why I love athletes is they understand a objective and how to work their ass off and don't need to only perform when the lights are on, especially pros that have succeeded, because most pros don't make it very far, not because they don't have the aptitude, the skill, but they think they made it when they got drafted. And unfortunately, they only start the game when they get drafted. Everybody was a high school and college all-star to be a pro. Everybody. Yeah. So there's no mediocrity now. Now it's a matter of, can you perform and work your ass off to compete? Like we just hit 100 stores. I'm competing with the biggest and baddest in my space. I told my team, what got us to here will not get us to there. These guys aren't playing around. They know their business. They've forgotten more than we've ever learned. We need to work our ass off. We need to innovate. We need to show up, and we need to be great. We got to find where we need improvement, and we need to improve. And we need to remove all this idea that we know what we think we know. No one knows what tomorrow is. No one knows what will work today. I don't care what worked 100 times. Nothing works forever. And you need to challenge it. You need to be willing to, and you need to move fast, move with purpose, and give 100% of yourself and be remarkable. And that's what has to happen. And when it's not working, to your point, fail fast, pivot.
Right. So fascinating. I mean, considering especially Drew Brees, Jayson Tatum, Shaq. I mean, you're at 100 now, but you just mentioned that you have hundreds in the pipeline, essentially. So here we are, 2025, obviously way past all the issues, any kind of barriers you would have with COVID. But I know a lot of brands that have been kind of laying low for the last couple of years, right? Everybody's kind of waiting, like letting the economy play out. But to consider the, just the sheer capital available via, that your franchisees have available, considering who they are, the fact that you own your own construction company, that you can punch these out very, very quickly, the fact you have a proven model here, what does the next couple of years look like for Everbowl? Because this could get crazy. You could really rev this up in a way that is pretty unprecedented for a brand of your current scale.
I love it. Yes, what you just said. No, look, the goal is Everbowl for everybody, everywhere. And so the leader is Tropical Smoothie Cafe with about 1,400 locations. So 2,000 locations. We're going international. We have some deals that we're working on to do that. I'm trying to disrupt how we bring franchisees on. I want to bridge the Chick-fil-A / normal model. So find great people who could run great stores and put them in business. And if I have to pay for it myself, I'm interested. Funding should never stand in the way. Franchising is broken because only rich people can buy a lot of franchises. That's just stupid. Why? Franchising is a great way for aspiring business owners to take control of their financial freedom and actually build wealth. It's been done so many times. Some of the most wealthiest friends of mine own tons of franchises, and they started when they didn't have anything. But brands tend to have all these disclaimers. Well, if you don't have money, you can't work for us and own a store. A hungry dog hunts best. I don't want the person who's rich. I want the person who wants to be rich, who's willing to work for it, who's willing to do what it takes to survive, to win, to succeed. Because If you do things for money, you're never going to be great. I don't need the money, and I work harder today than I ever have. It bothers my wife, friends, and kids sometimes, but I only know how to do 100% or zero. I don't have in between. So if I'm not 100% in, I'm out, and I'm really out. And when I'm in, I'm in. And I am inspired by remarkable. I'm inspired by people who are pushing the envelope to improve, who find a mistake, take ownership of it, and move on. And don't spend time, defending bad ideas or bad execution. We all make mistakes. I fail miserably on so much shit, and I butcher things, and I offend people, and I do things wrong. But when I'm aware of it, I try to correct it. Or it was on purpose, and I'm not sad or upset about it, and I'm going to tell you. But that's the way everybody should act. Like, you shouldn't, friends should be like, you hear, oh, I don't want to offend my friend. Then they're not really your friend. If you're my friend, you tell me what I need to hear. If I'm an asshole, tell me. If I have mustard on my shirt, tell me. If you don't, you're an acquaintance. Because if you love me and I love you, nothing you say is going to make me upset, because it's coming from a place of love. My best interest is why you're telling me, then tell me. Same thing for my staff, for, in business. Your idea sucks. Tell me. I may disagree and still do it, but that's okay. But you should, my dad tells me I suck, or it's a bad idea all the time. So good.
So last question, Jeff. I mean, thinking back to when, you wanted to be, well, you went into both Marines and law school.
I went to the Marines. I had an enlistment date. I had my ASVAB. I had my job as special police. I had my deployment date to Pendleton, but got to law school in May of that year. And I had agreed to back out. So I did not serve our country. And I don't want anyone to, I was planning on it, but I didn't. So
sure. No,
the real heroes are the ones who did.
No, yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, considering we became a sports agent, you stopped doing that because of the travel and the work. When you have a daughter, you just mentioned you're working harder than ever before. I think you're kind of programmed to be one of those guys. You're just working hard, and that's great. To your point, if everybody worked hard, what a society we could build for ourselves. I want you to talk to yourself 20 years ago, because just thinking about the 20 odd years you've been, just busting your butt for all of these businesses and building something special, what would the advice be for yourself back then when, you were a sports agent and you left to become the sales rep at ADP, and you did, your whole future's ahead of you. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Don't divert from your values. So often we justify not doing the thing we know we should do because it's scary, it's uncomfortable. Have the tough conversations. Remove anyone from your organization or your team that is mediocre or isn't striving to be remarkable. Accept nothing less, because I don't work hard. I work a lot. And the difference is, to me, it's not work. Like, my wife gets frustrated with me sometimes because she's like, it's 7:00. You didn't, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm doing something, and I love what I'm doing. So the clock, I'm not waiting till Saturday to enjoy my life. Like, I don't understand that. So if you don't love what you're doing, find something that you're passionate about. Doesn't mean and people miss that. And I want to be clear, because oh yeah, sure, Jeff, like, I can't make money painting oil paintings. Okay. Well, then that doesn't mean that you can't be a creative that does creative painting as part of the job that you do. Like, I don't love every part of my job. I just love building companies. I love building teams. I love watching people grow and develop. I love giving them the resources to be in their brilliance and share in that, because I don't have their brilliance. My brilliance and their brilliance creates better brilliance, right? It's peanut butter and jelly. Individually good, together great, right? So how do we do more of that in society? So my young self, I tolerated mediocrity longer. I was insecure by my age and my position, and sometimes shied away from that because my executives were significantly older than me when I was in my 20s, and I had a payroll and HR company with 50-year-olds and 45-year-olds working for me, and I had a little baby at home, and I still felt like I was a kid. So I was insecure to have certain conversations I needed to have. I allowed mediocrity to linger longer than I should have. And I didn't have enough 100% conviction in what I needed to do. Doesn't mean I'm right for you. It just means I'm right for me, right? So people have to understand that if you believe in something and you're going to put your all into it, put your all into it. A lot of times we think we gave our best, and there's so not true. And the hard conversation to yourself is to understand that. And I have done guilty of this all the time in my past. And so I would sit my younger self down and I would remind him that when you think you gave your best, give me 10 reasons why I didn't, and answer that question for yourself. Young Jeff would get into a car accident and blame the car accident why I missed the appointment. Older Jeff would say I didn't leave early enough to avoid that, because if I got into a car accident, it wasn't, bodily injury car accident, I still could have Ubered or gotten there and given myself enough time. And that's why old people say on time is late, because you weren't accounting for any other issue. You should never be late. You control that. I used to use them as an excuse. Well, it's a choice. I chose to be late. Bottom line, I chose not to wake up earlier and prioritize, or I chose to stack meetings on top of each other and run the risk that, like, it's 2:01 and I have a 2:00. The 2:00 that I have, though, it's a friend of mine. They'll be okay. But I'm not going to say sorry. I'm going to say sorry I'm late, but I'm not going to say, oh, it was out of my control. No, I'm sorry I'm late, but I was in a podcast and we were having a great conversation, and I hope you don't mind, but I'm 3 minutes late or 5 minutes late, right? Like, it's a choice. And so I own me now. I would tell my younger self, everything in your life, good or bad, was your decision, your choice, and you're accountable and responsible, period. And the sooner you learn that, the world opens up.
Well, on that note, that is good stuff. Jeff Fenster, the founder of Everbowl. Jeff, really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for your words of wisdom. I learned a lot on this one. So thanks again.
Dude, thank you. And if there's ever anything I can do for you or your community, everyone feel free to reach out. My book's on relationship capital, and that's kind of where I built my entire career and who I know, and helping as many people achieve what they want. And it tends to benefit me too. So it's selfish. It's selfless to be selfish. But we can all help each other. So if I can do anything for anybody, please don't be shy. I will love to talk to you.
That was my interview with Everbowl founder Jeff Fenster. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 6 takeaways. My first takeaway is that as a restaurant leader, you should be a problem solver, not a problem seeker. Listen, you can tell Jeff's passion for what he does, his hard work, and especially as we were talking, I couldn't help but think, like, Jeff is an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. This guy is the definition of an entrepreneur, where he loves to start companies, he loves to solve problems with companies. But when we really dug into how he sees himself as an entrepreneur, I loved this point that he made, where he feels like sometimes entrepreneurs are like dogs chasing a car. They are chasing after a problem to solve, but then what do they do when they actually solve it? What does the dog do when it finally catches the car? As Jeff says, he doesn't want to do that. He wants to instead solve a problem that's right here in front of him. He's not looking for the problem. He's just solving the problem. And there are lots of problems to be solved in the restaurant industry. And as he confronts every problem that he's had in the past, he's found opportunity. He's found solutions. And in those solutions, he often finds even more opportunity, a new path even to take his brand. That entrepreneurial mindset is clearly helping him and helping Everbowl to grow and to be very successful. So it's just, again, that mindset of don't seek the problems, but just solve the problems that present themselves to you. My second takeaway is that your competition is not necessarily in your category. I've had a few people say this recently to me, and I think it's an important point to note, because I don't think they're just saying it because it's what you're supposed to say. But truly, operators in, for example, the acai bowl category, Jeff says he doesn't see all of these other acai players out there as his competitors. He sees his competition instead as fast food brands serving unhealthy food. Because in his mind, Jeff's goal is to get Americans to eat healthier. And if the acai bowl category explodes and gets bigger and bigger, and that's with other competitors, not just Everbowl, then he's done his job. He has accomplished that goal. That is a really smart way, I think, to look at competition. Look, you're no doubt going to still look at the others in your category as some version of competition, because you're probably going to get to a point where you're competing for leases and you're competing for loyal customers. But I think it's a worthy thing to first start by saying, I'm not going after the other guy in this category. I'm going after the way Americans eat. I want to change the way people perceive food through my restaurant. Obviously, it's a little easier with certain categories like acai bowls. But I think it's applicable to other brands as well, that you should see your competition is what other restaurants your guests are eating at, not the ones that are just like yours. My third takeaway is that streamlining your construction process could help you grow faster. Now, look, I'll put this on the table right up front, and you probably thought this as you were listening to Jeff. It is really not feasible for everybody to run out and start their own construction company so that they can build their stores more quickly. Jeff, again, is an entrepreneur at heart, and this was an opportunity that he saw that worked for him, but it took a lot of time and effort and money to put into that. So it's not necessarily something that is accessible for every other brand that's out there. However, I thought there were some interesting points that Jeff made in there that are worth thinking about as you grow. First thing is that you can think about construction a little bit differently. Jeff broke everything down into all these little parts. He thought about everything down to the screws that you have to use, the materials, how much does it cost? How can you make it cheaper? Every little thing he could think of through the construction process, he rethought it, disrupted the entire process. And for him, then that led him to starting his own construction company. But I love the point that he made too about, this, you can have a fake chandelier hanging and it looks pretty, but because it's hanging out of the way, nobody's going to touch it and realize it's not a real chandelier. But the things people touch, the things they actually see up close, that should be the high quality material that you use, because that's the actual material that your customer engages with. That kind of thinking, I think, is really important. Break down your store construction into all of the individual components and rethink what needs to get that attention, that quality, and what could perhaps be done a little bit more cheaply. Again, when I say that word cheaply, that's actual cost. That's not, quality of the material. But in some cases, you will be able to cheapen the quality of the material if it's not something your guest is really interacting with a lot. So again, disrupt that mindset around construction. Don't do this the way you've always done it. Rethink how you could do it so that you could perhaps lower the cost and build more quickly and efficiently. My fourth takeaway is that every restaurant you open will teach you something about location and real estate. Jeff made the point that he had a store that they opened and he said to himself, no way, this is never going to work. It's not in the right spot. It's going to fail. And instead, it became a highly successful restaurant. I'm sure a lot of you also have those same kind of stories. Also, you might have vice versa. You might have one that you're like, this is A+ real estate. It's going to do really well. And then it ended up failing. The point is you don't know until you know, right? You have to still kind of go forward and open and see what happens. But of course, importantly, learn with every restaurant you open. The metaphor Jeff used that I thought was really apt was that, when you have one kid, you think you have parenting all figured out and that every kid that comes after that will go exactly the same. But then as you have more kids, you learn something new with every kid and it goes a lot differently because every kid is different. Just like that, every restaurant you open is different. Every lease is different. Every plot is different. And as you open more stores, you learn something about those locations. Now, look, we have great data available today so that you can start to operationalize and systemize that a little bit more so that you put all of those lessons into an algorithm. And then, it helps you kind of spit out what exactly that right location is. But the point here is to take away is really just know as you open stores, you don't have any kind of certainty with every store you open, but watch and learn and see how things go. Because whether it's working or not, you're going to learn something out of that process that's going to be applicable to all the future stores that you open down the road. My fifth takeaway is that the opportunities right in front of you are the catalysts for brand change. As we wound down this interview, which was just so inspiring and energetic, and you could feed off of Jeff's energy. I'm sure you did as well. Certainly I did. As we wound down this conversation, Jeff made the point. He's like, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You have to react really to what is in front of you today. And that's what Jeff is doing. Only he does it again as an entrepreneur who sees opportunity, sees problems to solve, and then opportunity in the solution. When he goes about doing all of this, he's not thinking about what's coming up years from now, what's way in the future, and how can I anticipate that? He's taking every problem right in front of him. And then again, that catalyst for brand change, he's using those opportunities to create some bigger solutions. So a couple of examples that I thought were really interesting. One was the QVC deal that they did in COVID. So COVID happens, of course, everybody has to pivot. Well, for Everbowl, that pivot looked like starting a direct-to-consumer business. And that direct-to-consumer business became so successful that then they made a deal with QVC. And as Jeff said, led to millions of dollars in revenue. COVID, of course, was the catalyst there. But again, they didn't just sit on their hands and not do anything about it. They saw the problem, they saw a potential solution, and they chased it with intensity. And that created millions of dollars in revenue. Another example is with franchising. Jeff said he never thought he would do franchising. But then at some point, especially through QVC, he started to get an inbound of franchise requests and realized that he had to make this pivot into franchising because the demand he could not resist. And both of these are examples of there's a problem right in front of you. There's something you have to solve for. You have to make a decision. And that right there is the catalyst to brand change that could lead to bigger and better things. But if you sit here thinking maybe 5 years from now I'll franchise, you're kind of missing the point because you got to look there right in front of you. What is facing you today? How do you solve for it? And what opportunity is there? My sixth and final takeaway is that if you love what you do and you work hard toward your goals, you can be unstoppable. That was the vibe I got from Jeff, is that this guy's been pretty much successful throughout his career, but he admits to a lot of the things in which he also failed. But the fact is he failed and then he moved on quickly. He always he always put in hard work. He worked with intensity and passion, and he never sat back and let other people do the things that he should have been doing. As he said, too many people make excuses for mediocre work. I think it's true for everybody else out there. If you work hard, if you're passionate about what you're doing, if you set some goals that you want to achieve, you really can do anything, but you've got to let that passion and intensity drive you. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again and talk to you next week.